like we need to watch out about population collapse?
The birth rate in the US has been below replacement rate since like 71 or 72. Japan actually went down by 600,000 people last year.
It would be a sad ending. Really, the youth are effectively de facto enslaved to take care of the old people.
For years, the fear of overpopulation dominated discussions, with concerns about too many people on a planet with finite resources fueling environmental worries such as pollution and global warming. Many well-educated couples chose to have no children or limit themselves to just one in an effort to combat overpopulation. In China, the one-child policy enforced this decision. However, while the global human population is expected to keep increasing for the next 4 decades, current demographic trends reveal a far more significant existential threat: global underpopulation. And there is one individual who has been sounding the alarm for years, and he happens to be none other than Elon Musk. The visionary behind Tesla and SpaceX recently shared another unsettling message about the dangers of underpopulation. What exactly did he say, and what does it mean for the world at large? Let's delve into the details. The 20th century witnessed an unprecedented surge in the world's population, soaring from 1.6 billion in 1900 to a staggering 6 billion in 2000. However, that era has come to an end. The majority of demographic data now point to a different concern: a scarcity of babies rather than overpopulation crisis. The evidence supporting this shift is clear. In Japan, more diapers are purchased for the elderly than for babies. China, which once enforced a strict one-child policy, has recently raised its child limit to 3, anticipating a peak in population followed by a decline in 2030. Meanwhile, the United States is experiencing historically low population growth rates reminiscent of the Great Depression era. And it might seem perplexing that fears of underpopulation are rising despite the world's population more than doubling in just 5 decades. With the global fertility rate still exceeding the so-called replacement level of 2.1 births per woman. However, with approximately 2/3 of the global population residing in regions with sub-replacement fertility and an increasing number of countries grappling with declining birth rates, concerns about underpopulation are becoming increasingly prevalent. Some individuals have begun sounding the alarm, warning that if this trend persists, entire nations or even the human population itself could face a severe collapse. And in a recent statement, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, expressed grave concerns over the declining birth rates, deeming them the biggest danger civilization faces by far. He highlighted the alarming fact that the current birth rate is 40% below the replacement level, which he believes could lead to a catastrophic population collapse. Musk pointed to Japan as an example where the population decreased by 600,000 people in a single year, indicating the severity of the situation. When asked about the United States, Musk revealed that the country has been below the replacement rate since the 1970s, emphasizing that a low birth rate is a slow but steady demise for a civilization. He painted a bleak picture of civilization fading away quietly, surrounded by adult diapers, and expressed a preference for a more dramatic end. However, it appears that the onset of population collapse is still a few decades away, according to a recent report by the United Nations, which states that global population growth is expected to continue for many more years, despite the slowing birth rate. This seemingly contradicts Musk's warnings about the imminent threat of underpopulation. Although Musk himself has multiple children and claims to be actively involved in addressing the underpopulation crisis, his remarks are often laced with humour and should be taken with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, he remains steadfast in his belief that population collapse will be the most significant problem the world will face in the next 2 decades, citing evidence of declining birth rates in numerous countries worldwide. But what do the numbers reveal? Number 1, brace yourself for this. Europe is the only region expected to witness a decline in population in the near future, between 2022 and 2050, with a projected shrinkage of 7%. However, regions like Central, South and Southeast Asia, Latin America and the Caribbean, and North America are set to continue growing, although they will reach their peak sizes before the turn of the century. Number 2, And here's an intriguing twist. Many parts of the world have experienced fertility rates below replacement level since the 1970s, and yet their populations haven't dwindled. How come? Well, it's because these countries often see a significant inflow of immigrants. In fact, in the coming decades, migration is expected to be the primary driver of population growth in wealthy nations. Number 3. Now let's talk about the big picture. The global average fertility rate has plummeted from an astounding 5 births per woman in 1950 to a more modest 2.3 births per woman in 2023. This decline reflects the growing empowerment of individuals, particularly women, in making reproductive choices. And hold on tight, because overall fertility is projected to drop to 2.1 births per woman by 2050. These changes won't spread evenly across the globe. By 2050, the regions set to see the biggest increases in elderly populations include Europe, Asia, and North America, while most nations in Africa will continue to have a relatively young population. And now for a mind-boggling glimpse into the future, courtesy of a groundbreaking study recently published in Urban Sustainability. This study takes a deep dive into the realm of underpopulation and its potential ramifications on sustainability goals. By analysing demographic data sourced from United Nations reports, the study posits that the underpopulation predicament is not only multifaceted but also constantly evolving. Populations are both diminishing and growing older simultaneously. In a shocking revelation, the researchers highlight that the global population segment aged 65 and above is currently experiencing the most rapid growth. In a historic milestone of human existence, the elderly surpassed children under the age of 5 in numbers for the first time in 2019. Astoundingly, in 2020, a remarkable 9% of the world's population, encompassing a staggering 728 million individuals, fell into the 65 and above age group. This population is projected to more than double, skyrocketing to an astounding 1.55 billion by 2050. Accounting for an unprecedented 16% of the global population, assuming moderate fertility rates. However, these transformative shifts will not unfold uniformly across the globe. As we look ahead to 2050, certain regions are poised to witness a dramatic surge in elderly populations, namely Europe, Asia, and North America, while many nations in Africa will continue to maintain a predominantly youthful demographic. Understanding population shifts relies on a significant measure known as replacement level fertility, which Elon Musk frequently discusses. This metric indicates the average number of children women must have to maintain a stable population. Typically, this rate is around 2.1, accounting for the need to replace both parents and allowing for a 0.1 addition due to child mortality. In numerous countries, especially in Europe and Asia, the replacement rate has fallen below 1.5. This decline can be attributed in part to rapid urbanization. In 1950, roughly 1/3 of the global population resided in urban areas. However, projections suggest that by 2050, this ratio will double, with an estimated 7 billion people living in cities. Many individuals relocate to urban environments, seeking employment opportunities within our increasingly industrial and technology-driven global economy. Urbanization impacts population dynamics in 2 significant ways. Firstly, individuals living in cities tend to have fewer children due to factors like higher living costs, increased accessibility to contraception, and career-focused urban women choosing to delay or forego having children. Urban lifestyles also provide different incentives compared to rural areas, where larger families may be beneficial. This distinction explains why China relaxed its one-child policy for rural families in the 1980s. Additionally, urbanization is associated with lower mortality rates due to improved wealth and access to healthcare. As a result, adults have fewer children while enjoying longer lifespans. The researchers also noted that as the proportion of elderly individuals increases within a country, it can create economic and social pressures on the working-age population, further reducing birth rates and delaying childbirth, thereby driving fertility rates even lower. So, whether one admires or opposes him, Elon Musk may indeed be correct in highlighting the issue of underpopulation. In response to aging and declining populations, certain countries are already implementing or exploring policies to increase fertility rates. These measures include incentives like baby bonuses, subsidised childcare, and paid parental leave for both fathers and mothers. If these interventions prove successful, they could bring about a new demographic phase referred to as the vulnerable hourglass by the study published in Urban Sustainability. This phase is characterised by low mortality rates and recently increased fertility rates. Consequently, the population would consist of a significant number of young and elderly individuals, but relatively few working-age adults, potentially leading to a burden on the latter group. The researchers acknowledged that demographic shifts are intricate and many uncertainties remain regarding how factors such as urbanization will impact not only population levels but also the global environment and socio-economic conditions. Recognizing the rapid pace of these changes, particularly as the rate of aging and population decline, may be underestimated in official statistics. The study emphasized the need for urgent action. However, is it possible that there is an alternative perspective to the underpopulation crisis? What if there is a hidden aspect to this issue that we are unaware of? For a significant period, humanity has been living in dysfunctional and polluted cities that have disregarded the importance of nature. It may seem peculiar, but these circumstances only serve as a cover story, and the situation is just beginning to unfold. There is a growing cultural movement emerging from the shadows that seeks a collective commitment from humanity. This movement, considered an anti-human cult, has existed for decades, but has had to operate discreetly outside of academic circles due to the opposition it faces from much of the population. However, now that this cult is engaged in a massive depopulation effort, its proponents are stepping into the open to persuade us that it would be in our best interest for most of us to perish. The World Economic Forum has become the public platform for the depopulation agenda of this anti-human cult, and popular culture from Hollywood to religious institutions has aligned with it. The agenda disguises the goal of reducing the population as environmentalism, thus attempting to shame those who oppose it. When the consequences of mass starvation become overwhelming, sentimental environmentalists will likely be blamed. It is important to note that this agenda is not genuinely about the environment. Stanley Johnson, the father of Boris Johnson, is a member of this cult and has advocated for a substantial reduction in the global population. The objective is to achieve a more manageable number, as these individuals perceive the rest of humanity as their property to be controlled and culled as they see fit. So, what are your thoughts on these matters? Please share your opinions in the comments section below.